It's Christian Perry, your favorite real estate choreographer, and if you don't know where I'm at Town Hall. We have a very, very anticipated interview today with the one and only Fred Camillo. I've been waiting for this interview for a long time. He's a very busy guy, but with good reason. So follow me, let's get it going. With our first selectman, Fred Camillo. Thank you for making the time.
My pleasure, Kristen. Welcome.
I've been waiting for this interview for a long time, and it's finally here. So just wanted to talk a little bit. I created this little website for everyone to know what's going on in Greenwich. But before we get there, I want folks to know who you are and why you got involved in the leadership role of Greenwich, Connecticut. Can we start with that?
Sure, Christian. Well, I was born and raised here in Coscow, Connecticut, and worked for the beginning of my adulthood. Went to college later in life, worked my way through, but always had volunteered here. I first started out in athletics, playing baseball until I was about 30, competitive baseball, but also coaching, running clinics, umpiring for about 35 years. And then when I was about in my early 30s, I went on the RTM, which is our local legislature, and spent 3.5 terms on that one. And then went to the simultaneously on the Board of Parks and Recreation, where I was a chairman, and then was chairman of the Republican Town Committee. And when that was all done, about 1.5 years later, a seat opened up in the state legislature, and so I ran for that and was fortunate enough to get elected in 2008.
I can see why.
And well, you're kind, but I did a lot of door knocking and wore out 3 pairs of shoes that year. And then it was going my 6th term. I decided I had a really I think good experience up there, getting lots of bills passed, working with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle. But 6 terms is a long time,
Sure.
and I thought that was going to be it. And it turned out it was. This office here opened up, and I ran for it, and was fortunate enough to get elected in 2019. And so I'm finishing up my 1st term, but public service has always been something that it's been a part of my life since I was about 19 years old. So it's pretty much my whole adult life, and I love it.
Well, listen, why I'm very happy that he's first selectman is that in most towns that we come across, you'll see restaurants shutting down, especially during the COVID situation. But our restaurants, some of them thrived, right? And you were a big part of having that instrumental outdoor seating. I think that's the type of leadership that's incredible, because everybody got to enjoy the outdoors, right? And everybody got to have a little bit of a bright light during the tough last year that we had. And thank you for doing that, right? That's very, very important. Now, speaking of restaurants out on the roads, folks ask all the time, I remember this road a different way, and now there are these bump outs. Can you just once and for all answer why those are there?
Absolutely.
I love them.
Absolutely. Well, that's a great question. So prior to the pandemic, we talked about, when I was running for a selectman, creating a brand new pedestrian-friendly Greenwich Avenue connected to a brand new waterfront district. And the last part of that was the outside dining, because it involved some parking spaces being taken away. So we had to develop a plan at the same time to add some. So as we were doing that, the pandemic hit.
Yes.
So we quickly assessed the situation, and things were shutting down. Mandates coming from the state. I declared a state of emergency on March 18th of last year, but we didn't want businesses to close. So we walked Greenwich Avenue in the early days of the pandemic with all the department heads, including fire and police, and we came up with a plan. And planning and zoning was very, very helpful in that. And we got people outside, and not only, as you said, not only did it allow them to survive, they did very well last year, and created the atmosphere that we had envisioned prior to 2019, December 2019. So right now we have an effort called Reimagine Greenwich, and we're even raising money to beautify even the barriers, the Jersey barriers that protect the diners on the road. So you have a pedestrian-friendly Greenwich Avenue, and part of that is each intersection we bumped out. We want to bump out. We did the first one on East Elm. So bumping out the intersections means that you do 3 things. You slow the cars down when there's a little bump.
And that was a problem. I do remember that, right? Speeding down the avenue, right? That had to be mitigated.
Yes, and so it slows them down there. It also cuts down the distance that a pedestrian has to cross from one side to the other, and it improves the sight lines because now everything is bumped out, and not only is the public safety component addressed, it really has beautified that section of the avenue because now you have perennials there, greenery,
It's gorgeous.
colors. Yeah,
It's gorgeous.
it really is nice, and we actually now put little American flags from each of the lampposts there, and it's going to go together with flower pots. So we're trying to create that beautiful, you know, European dining, outdoor dining feel with a middle
I
America,
think everybody loves it.
Main Street type of, and it kind of works for Greenwich.
And it works during the winter too. I mean, thank God we've had some mild winters, but on mild winter nights, it's beautiful out there.
They had me out there at 27-degree weather one time, and I wasn't even cold.
Yeah, I know you got the heat lamps, and it's just something to do in the winter and something to just get outside of people that are just stuck in their homes. So
Absolutely.
another question I would love for you to answer. I came from California, right? We don't have first selectmen. We have mayors, and I'm sure most of America has mayors. But just for everyone out there, first selectman is comparable to a mayor, correct?
Absolutely, it's
Okay.
a New England term for mayor.
Very local term.
And there are some cities in Connecticut and New England that have mayoralties. But in Connecticut, in Greenwich, we have a board of selectmen. It's 3 selectmen or women, and the first selectman or woman is basically the mayor.
Got it. Makes sense. Makes sense. So, where do you see Greenwich going in the future? Let's see, what's new that new folks coming into Greenwich will be able to experience that we don't have at the moment?
Well, that's a great question. So we're trying to continue what has made Greenwich a destination for so many years. That's a well-run government, high civic involvement, the proximity to New York and Boston.
That's the driver for me, and also great schools.
Great schools and a park system and a countryside and a shoreline. And so how do you marry that great past with a bright, bold vision of the future? So in order to keep taxes low and very affordable here, we're looking to public-private partnerships, which is something Greenwich previously had not done. Did a couple over the last 20 years, but not many. So we've hit the ground running on that, and we're trying to do that to enhance facilities.
Any specific projects we could talk about?
Sure. The old Greenwich Civic Center, which the town was given in 1967, became outdated probably in the early 80s, and so since then has always been talked about, and they've had many committees established only to fall apart just short of the goal.
But what occurs in a civic center? Just so that folks know.
So
What happens there?
So the one we have now is there's a basketball court. There used to be a bowling alley that
Got
they
it.
took out, but it's a meeting place. There's
You
offices.
could rent it out.
You could rent it out for parties, which is done all the time.
There you go.
There's basketball courts. There's outdoors. There's fields there. But this building is going to have 2 courts or gymnasiums. It's going to have a cafe, which does not have.
That's
A great grand hallway, a lot of glass. So the one right now is very dated. So we got that approved. We already have secured a very big anchor donation, and we'll start a further fundraising effort in the coming weeks. So that should be done in the next 2 to 3 years. A completed building, long awaited. Going back 40 years.
Sure.
So that's one. We're also looking at the skating rink that was built in 1972 as just a slab of ice, and that was it. And they built it piecemeal and eventually named it for Dorothy Hamill, who was a Riverside resident who won
was she?
gold medals in the
yeah,
1976
absolutely.
Olympics. So we put that in the budget for the next few out years to start
So new updated rink.
a brand new one.
Very, very cool. So what I love about Greenwich, and we could talk about this a little bit, is, I'm at Sotheby's, it's not a secret, I'm a realtor at Sotheby's, and we have a lot of folks that are looking for starter homes. And that's what's great about Greenwich. You have the amenities of a country club, really, without having to join a country club. And you can get a starter home. A lot of people think, I can't afford Greenwich. You absolutely can, right? What communities in Greenwich is a great place to start a family?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's changed over the years. What was affordable and looked at as a starter area 40 years ago is now really a destination. So I look to 2 in particular right now, Chickahominy and Byram.
Yep.
Both great neighborhoods, probably overlooked for many, many years as a place to go, but certainly has been the sites of many, many families coming here and raising their families here. But now, lots going on. Take Byram, for example. We have a brand new fire station about to be unveiled in a few weeks.
Beautiful park with a brand new pool. Amazing kids facility.
Byron Park. It's like a resort now.
It is.
It's beautiful, and it's got a great harbor. We have a brand new elementary school there, New Lebanon. We have a library that's fairly new. So there's lots going on there, and it's basically a peninsula. It's got the Byron River on one side and the Sound on the other. I'm very, very high on that, and I think that's a place people should look. Chickahominy is where part of my family came from originally. Was very, very Italian many years ago. There's a great feast that's this week that culminates with the Feast of St. Roch's on Sunday. We have a big procession going through the streets. Actually was fortunate to be the Grand Marshal this year,
very
so
cool.
I'll have my walking shoes on me on Sunday. But Chickahominy is another place that has an advantage because it's a little closer to downtown Greenwich. You could walk to the train station. It's got a brand new school there, but it's also got that hometown feel too, and still, I think, very affordable.
Well, before we go, thank you for the pin.
It looks good on you.
Very, very cool. And one last question I need to ask you. Why do you love Greenwich?
I love Greenwich because of all the normal things that people tell you. The proximity to New York and Boston, the countryside, the shoreline, the great schools, our great park system. But the thing that jumps out at me the most is the high civic involvement here. It's second to none. When I was in the legislature for 11 years, I had the opportunity to visit most of the 169 municipalities in Connecticut, and I can tell you not one comes close to Greenwich. People move here, and they immediately start to volunteer. So if you're looking at buying a house in Greenwich, please do, and please think about our boards, commissions, and committees when you do come.
And low taxes.
And low taxes.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Peter.
Appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you. My pleasure.
All right, guys. Christian Perry, your favorite real estate choreographer, helping you with your best moves.
Coughlin Insurance, relationship driven since 1947.